Hello, Internet! I am back with another video where I yell into the nothingness, but this time I want to yell into something specific. Your mind. I made a video recently talking about how Nintendo was suing Palworld for patent infringement, which is different than copyright, which is what I originally thought that they were suing for. But a lot of the comments that I got were defending the multi-million-dollar company and saying that the small indie studio, you know, the one that showed how to make a proper open-world monster-catching video game with nowhere near the budget that Pokémon has, and that weirded me out, because why would anyone defend Nintendo? I mean, probably out of the big three, they have the best reputation because they're not firing studios that make good games or creating trend-chasing content that is just way overblown and not worth it. But I can assure you that Nintendo is no saint among sinners. They have their fair share of controversial decisions, and with this particular topic, I have a lot to say. So I just want to kind of break this down into 3 parts so I don't ramble for 3.5 hours. So part 1, Nintendo is not worth defending. Part 2 is Pokemon is not as unique as you think. And number 3 is Palworld is a parody. It's very clearly a parody. And with these 3 sections, I will show you why siding with the big corporation is almost always a bad idea, and why Palworld is just suffering from success. Now that they're being sued, they have to waste precious time, development time, defending themselves in a court that is very corporation friendly, instead of finishing their already phenomenal game. And this lawsuit just seeks to hurt a small company that made Nintendo look stupid. And now they're retaliating. And it's very, very clear. Because Nintendo could have made a much, much better game than Palworld years ago with the amount of money that they have made off of that genre and franchise. But now they're just going to use that large amount of money to bully someone that did it better than them. And even if you don't like Palworld, you have to admit that what they did was a new and fresh look at the genre that hasn't seen really any innovation in years. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Nintendo is not worth defending. Nintendo owns not 1, but 2 of the biggest franchises in the entire world, with Pokemon being the number 1 spot with an estimated $147 billion in revenue, and Mario taking the 9th spot with over $38 billion in estimated revenue. And that's it. That's why you shouldn't defend them. You want more? Fine. Nintendo is one of the most litigious companies in the gaming industry, and everyone knows it. They go out of their way to sue anyone that might be profiting, or sometimes not even profiting, from their lines of work if it involves Nintendo. Y'all know about the guy that they sued into slavery? A single man lived in a small apartment by himself, sued by Nintendo for hosting a ROM website where Switch games were on for over $4 million. He will now have to work for the rest of his life in order for him to pay back the money he owes to Nintendo after making about $500 to $1,000 a month from hosting this ROM website. He committed a crime, yes, but the amount of money that Nintendo is demanding from him is way more than the amount of damages he caused for this multi-billion-dollar company. It is ridiculous. They sued a kid for creating Joy-Con custom shells for a suicide prevention charity after a famous YouTuber sadly took their own life. If you haven't heard about that, look up the Etika Joy-Cons. Read a lot about it. It's messed up. Nintendo, during COVID, was particularly prickly about people using mods to stay connected and just play together. The Big House, which used to be one of the biggest Smash Bros. Hosting tournament companies, got cease and desisted because Nintendo was mad about people using a mod to have an online connectivity with a game that did not have online connectivity. Smash Bros. Melee, which is a Nintendo GameCube game that doesn't have online connection, they used a mod called the Sleepy mod. In order for them to play, they shut down the tournament. Couldn't use it anymore. Crazy. They shut down their own Smash World Tour out of nowhere with no warnings to any of the tournament organizers, costing them thousands of dollars in just lost revenue. They also changed the tournament hosting rules, limiting the size and scope of every revenue amounting tournament. You can no longer make money off of your tournament. They cannot generate a profit. It's illegal according to them. They cannot receive goods or sponsors from the event themselves. And even high school charities must get a written permission from Nintendo in order to operate legally. That is absurd. It is a well-known thing in the gaming world that Nintendo seems to hate their fans. So much so that they constantly take down Nintendo OST songs, original soundtrack songs, that are posted on YouTube on a regular basis, which is just free promotion for their games and for their music, and yet they constantly take it down. Maybe, yeah, some people might be making money off of it, but like, Nintendo, y'all could be making money off of it. Host the songs. People want to listen to your music. They're bops. But no, you just won't. You like charge money for extra soundtracks or something. It's crazy. There are literally YouTube accounts that are specifically designed to just slightly tweak Nintendo music just so they can, host it without getting immediately shut down. And don't even get me started about the laziness of the Pokemon games, with the lack of story cutscenes and the lies about transferring Pokemon models in their first console outing, which was Sword and Shield, or the horrendously performing release of Scarlet and Violet. Pokemon fans have gotten used to poor performance and buggy gameplay so much so that it's more than Bethesda fans have, and that is saying a lot. Either way, Pokemon and Nintendo do not deserve your sympathy. They will happily throw your love for their works in the trash if it's possible for them to make an extra buck or use you as an example to not recreate their art. I am a huge Pokemon fan, and I have been through the worst of it, and even I can say they do not deserve sympathy from us or me or any gamer in general. So don't defend them. They defend themselves perfectly well, if not maybe too much.
Hello, this is me from the future. Just adding to this, there's actually even a website called Sued by Nintendo that has a list of literally like all the lawsuits that Nintendo has done. You should check it out. There's a lot of really cool, interesting information there, just to show you, yet again, Nintendo isn't worth defending.
Part 2. Pokemon is not that unique. Now, Pokemon is well known for taking the monster taming genre to the top of the charts, and when it comes to game genres, that they are easily the most well known in that particular area. But I can tell you right now that they are not the first ones to do it, and they're not even the ones to first design Pokemon the way that they're designed. Now, one of the first pioneers in the monster taming genre was actually Shin Megami Tensei. A more popular version of these games is the Persona series, so if you haven't heard of them, there's that. But even that series started before Pokemon did. Shin Megami Tensei players set players in a post-apocalyptic world where they had to train demons to help them traverse this dangerous landscape and defeat the ultimate evil. Now, these games came out a full decade before Pokemon ever did and has been doing it ever since. Even their most recent game, Shin Megami Tensei 5, just recently got a new DLC, Shin Megami Tensei 5 Vengeance. It is awesome, but those games definitely seem to have a little bit more of an adult theme, hence why they may not have popped off as hard as Pokemon did. Another similar game to Pokemon is Dragon Quest, which Dragon Quest V, which had the monster taming structure, was released in 1992, 4 years before the release of Pokemon, and they had a very similar taming structure, like I said, to Shin Megami Tensei, where you can recruit them, level them up, fight on your behalf and everything. They could learn new moves, and are those the designs? Okay, hold on. Let me just pull these up right here. Look a little similar, huh? Right? Maybe you could even say derivative? Huh? Either way, there's a few notable games that also came out before Pokemon, like Robotrek, which was in 1992, Persona, which came out in 1996, and Monster Rancher, which was 1997, with a very similar mechanic to the capturing and raising of monsters, but with a more, personal touch to it. You vibed with your monsters, which was nice. But of course, Pokemon came out, and then there was a slew of other monster taming games that have come out since then. Temtem, Monster Sanctuary, Ni no Kuni, and hundreds more. Now, none rising to the height and popularity of Palworld, hence why I think this whole thing is an issue in the first place. Palworld didn't steal anything. The Pokemon Company just feels threatened by how popular Palworld got in such a short amount of time. But besides that, I'm sure you're thinking, well, none of those games use a ball mechanic to capture Pokemon monsters like Pokemon does, and Palworld clearly copied that. The Pokemon ball capture mechanics actually originated from a show called Ultraman, which debuted all the way back in 1966. Ultraman used to have these things called capsule kaijus, which was introduced in the third season of the show, well before Pokemon, where, Ultraman would have these monsters in little capsules where they would battle each other in times of peril. And Satoshi Tajiri, the well-known creator of Pokemon, also cites his bug collecting as another inspiration for a lot of the Pokemon designs. Many Pokemon are based off of animals in nature, and I'm sure that generic animals don't intend on suing Pokemon for ripping off their actual look. Now, I know that is not gonna happen, and I'm being hyperbolic, but either way, I think the idea of being upset about someone ripping off their designs is just kind of silly, because if you look at the designs from all the other monster taming games and then mix them with all the Pokemon designs and then showed them to someone that was like not a gamer, I guarantee you they would not be able to tell which from which, because they all look similar. It's silly. Either way, Pokemon is not the end-all be-all of monster taming games, and so it's kind of stupid for people to get so up in arms when the designs look similar, and especially when it comes for Palworld Pals, I do have to say that on some occasions they do look derivative of Pokemon designs, but even that can be completely negated by what they're intending to do and not break copyright or patent law, which leads me to my next point. Part 3. Palworld is clearly a parody. Now, just so we are all on the same page with the definition of parody, parody is an imitation of a style of a particular writer, artist, or genre with deliberate exaggeration for comic effect. Famous examples of this include, like Spaceballs or Austin Powers in movies where they're parodying Star Wars and James Bond. And when it comes to games, video game companies are normally a little bit more broad when it comes to parody, where they seem to reference and parody a multitude of different games or a complete genre as a whole. Like, Conker's Bad Fur Day, a beloved N64 era platformer that had all the looks and art design of a cutesy kids platformer, but with enough swearing and bathroom humor to make even the toughest sailor blush. Games like Cult of the Lamb is another game that emulates these kind of jarring disconnects between the game art and the gameplay elements to create a comedic but ultimately fun game. Unmetal is a on-the-nose parody where it is clearly harping on the Metal Gear series. It has garnered relative praise from those that have played it, and it has made a well-made homage to the classic stealth action elements of the classic Metal Gear games, while adding some extra comedic writing to make it stand out more than just another copycat game. The Oregon Trail is just a zombie version of the Oregon Trail, and these are all examples of parody games that seem to take a certain genre or game and kind of turns them on their head for comedic value, or as a interesting gameplay arc. The hard part of creating a good parody, video game in particular, is not just imitating the specific game or genre for comedic value, but also using that comedy to shoot for a different, interesting game cycle. And it's really easy to imitate something, but it takes a lot more skill to take that imitation and make it funny while still feeling unique. Palworld does just that. It is a parody of Pokemon. It takes all the basic tropes of Pokemon and turns them on their head for some rather hilarious gameplay, and the only reason it's so funny is because Pokemon has such well-established rules within its own universe, and Palworld breaks all of them, and it's clearly on purpose. Pokemon with guns is what people use to describe Palworld. Now let's just think about that for just a second. Why does that 3-word phrase already sound funny? It's because Pokemon is a well-established, child-friendly game, where Pokemon may fight each other, but it's only until they pass out. and they have a very little discussion about death or darker themes in general in most of their games. They are very much about helping each other succeed and loving all Pokemon and living in harmony with them. And you know what would be the exact opposite of that philosophy? Murder and mayhem. But that's exactly what Palworld is trying to represent. Everything that Pokemon is not. Palworld gives you weapons, not only to kill the pals, but also to literally chop them up into pieces and feed them to other pals. These games allow you to catch people in the pal spheres, which is so against the rules in Pokemon, and Palworld literally makes a joke at that exact rule that you broke, saying that it's a moral issue. Pokemon allows you to set up your Pokemon with like tasks like running in marathons or doing beauty contests. In Palworld, you can literally put your pals to work in the mines and have them slave away, collecting materials in harsh conditions where they could literally die of being overworked, which is just ridiculous and funny. Pokemon lets you transfer your Pokemon to humane labs or release them into the wild for free, so they can be free and everything like that. Palworld lets you butcher your pals and turn them into meat for other pals. Or you could just sell them on the black market. And that's not just me saying black market. The guy is literally called Black Market Merchant. That's his name, Black Market Merchant. Like, every single gameplay choice is designed to emulate the cuteness of Pokemon while putting them through these inhumane conditions of slavery and death at the hands of your inventive and sadistic players. That is the point. Perhaps some of the designs are similar to Pokemon, but that's literally the point of satire and parody, is to collectively emulate something while transforming it into something completely different for comedic value. There's even a really weird Palpedia entry on entry 69, nice, that is just gross. It's weird. I'm not going to read it here, but just go look at it for yourself. It's all very deliberate. It's very obviously satire and parody, which is allowed in this medium as a protected act, or else every sketch comedy show that has ever made fun of Pokemon is liable for a lawsuit as well. Pokemon, and by extension Nintendo, is just mad that a small indie company did just huge numbers with a game that is clearly making fun of them. And they picked up a huge swath of old Pokemon players that Nintendo has seemingly left behind because all the games are clearly aimed for a younger and younger audience. It's clearly parody. Chill out. All right. I know that was a lot, and I'm sorry to put you through all of that, but I just wanted to make it make sense that there is literally no reason to protect the Pokemon Company and by extension Nintendo. They are perfectly capable of protecting themselves, and sometimes even too much. If Nintendo would have listened to their fans when they first announced their upgrade to the bigger and more powerful platform, and then proceeded to make a decent game and not fall short in every aspect of them, then perhaps Palworld wouldn't have done so well. But we'll never know, because Nintendo doesn't listen to anyone besides their shareholders. And you need to just stop going to bat for a company that doesn't care about you. Satire is an important part of art, and at whole, it helps us take a look at the absurdity of things that we take for granted. Anyways, my rant is over. Do you agree or disagree? Though I feel like if you disagreed, you probably wouldn't be watching all the way through this and are already furiously typing away in the comment section just based off of the title and thumbnail. Either way, I hope you all had a great day, except for Nintendo, and make sure to like and subscribe, and peace.